Everyone, Top Paul here, and today I want to talk to you about the level 20 encounter I threw against my players in Dungeons and Dragons. This encounter was by far the funnest one that I have run so far. After the undead encounter, this one was much simpler from the DM's perspective to run, and I believe my players had a lot more fun because not only did they have more agency and more of the spotlight was on them, they also got kicked all around this battlefield, both literally and figuratively. So let's take a look at it. So I've pulled up D&D Beyond maps. Here are my four players. We have a Moon Druid, a World Tree Barbarian, Thief Rogue, and then a Trickster Cleric against the adversaries, 2 Stone Golems and 1 Colossus. Now, let's look at how much XP we spent and what this encounter would be considered in the new Dungeon Master's Guide. Here in our encounter builder, we can see that we had 4 players, all of them at level 20, giving us a pool for a high difficulty encounter of 88,000 XP. The Colossus ate up the largest chunk of that with 75,000, and the 2 Stone Golems rounded it out so that we only ended up not using 1,200 XP to build what would be this high difficulty encounter in the new 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. All right, let's take a look at the stat blocks. First up, we have our Colossus. This is going to be our main event. AC of 23, 553 hit points with a base movement speed of 60 feet. For our modifiers, we're going to see plus 10s to both strength and con. Dex is going to come to a 0 mod, but an 8 save. Wisdom is also an 8 save, and int and charisma both come in negative. We have resistances to both necrotic and radiant damage, and then immunities to poison damage, as well as a nice little plethora of conditions to make sure he doesn't get taken out of the fight too easily. We have true sight out to 300 feet, and a passive perception of 10. Coming down to traits, we have immutable form. It cannot shapeshift. Legendary resistance was 4 times a day. Magic resistance, giving it an advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. And Siege Monster. The Colossus deals double damage to objects and structures. It did not come up in this combat, but if it did, it would have been absolutely destructive. Coming down to the Colossus's bread and butter, its actions. It's going to make 3 attacks between slams and radiant rays. Slam's going to be its melee attack, radiant's going to be its ranged attack. Both of these are going to be getting a plus 18 to hit. Slam is within 20 feet, so the reach on the Colossus is pretty good, dealing an average of 32 bludgeoning damage, and you push your target 20 feet straight away from yourself. With the Radiant Ray, same plus 18 to hit, 22 radiant damage this time, and if it is a larger, smaller creature, it is going to have the prone condition. Its rechargeable ability, Divine Beam, Dexterity saving throw, DC 26. Each creature in a 300-foot long, 10-foot wide line are going to take an average of 65 radiant damage or half damage on a success. In addition to that, any creature that is reduced to 0 hit points by this beam disintegrates into dust, leaving behind any magic items it was wearing or carrying, which did not come up because I used Divine Beam once and then it didn't recharge for the next 3 rounds of combat. Now, when we come down to legendary actions, it's going to be more of the same. We're going to have 1 Radiant Ray attack, or get to move half of its speed without providing opportunity attacks, and making 1 slam attack at any point during that move. That is the Colossus. Let's take a look at the Stone Golems. For our Stone Golems, we have an AC of 18, hit points of 220, and a speed of 30 feet. The reason I chose Stone Golems over other constructs is I really wanted something that is going to kind of hinder the party in them trying to take down the Colossus. So I was really looking at this slow bonus action. It did not end up playing as much of a part in the combat that I wanted it to, but that was with the DC 17 Constitution save. Nobody's really dumping Constitution, and a good portion of my party had proficiency in Constitution saving throws through the way they built their characters, even not knowing what was going to face them in the encounter. Other than that, you have a ranged attack, a melee attack, and you're able to kind of use 2 of them interchangeably, and it does have advantage on saving throws just like the Colossus did. So, how did this encounter play out? First and foremost, I gave my players 1 preparatory round, so they had 1 round of combat before they ended up facing their enemies face to face. So, things like Power Word Fortitude were able to be cast, potions were able to be drank, and the players were able to prepare for what they were about to face. One of them did drink a potion of greater invisibility, which turned out to be not effective because the Colossus does have true sight. The stone golem was not able to target him right off the bat, but again, they were there more for the slow than anything else. Over the rounds of combat, the real star of this fight was the Moon Druid. I was very surprised at the robustness of Moon Druids. I know that they were hindered a little bit in the new 2024 rules, but getting those temporary hit points switching between forms allowed our Moon Druid to probably tank around 500 points of damage, all said and done, by the end of the encounter, which was fantastic. He really was someone who took the brunt of the Colossus, and through involuntary movement, with the slam ability, the Colossus would run up to him, slam him, move him 20 feet away, run up again, slam him, move him 20 feet away, and then usually Radiant Ray knocking him prone. So he was never really getting away because he had to use half of his movement to stand up before doing anything else. The Barbarian did a great job tying up the stone golems and removing them from the battlefield in a couple of rounds. The Barbarian's general damage output to me is still amazing with the new rule set. The Thief Rogue did go in on a couple stone golems. That beautiful 2 basically full turns in the first round of combat is absolutely fantastic. They get not only their own initiative, but their initiative -10. So they get those 2 turns during the first round of combat, which usually ends up meaning a couple 100 points of damage, depending on whether or not the Barbarian did a great job tying up the 2 stone golems and really laying the hurt on them. The Barbarian combined with the Thief Rogue ended up doing most of the damage that went into the 2 stone golems. The Barbarian's damage output in the new rule set has been nothing but amazing to me, even when you're not picking something that is damage forward, like the Berserker or the Zealot. The World Tree Barbarian is still able to really put a walloping on enemies and just be incredibly tanky. The Thief Rogue also did a couple turns into the stone golems, really doing a good chunk of the damage. The Thief Rogue gets 2 turns in the first round of combat, not only their own initiative, but their initiative -10, and are able to do basically, as long as you're set up in the right way, 2 sneak attacks and really lay down a lot of damage. The one hindrance to the Thief Rogue that we did have during this encounter was the fact that he was using, I believe, a Ring of Invisibility or a Cloak of Invisibility, one of the 2. With the true sight of the Colossus, he was not able to get as many moments of advantage that he wanted to. The Trickster Cleric got their duplicate out early and cast a lot of spells through it. And it was really a fantastic way for them to have a good amount of battlefield control, being able to not only cast spells based on their current location, but as well their duplicate's location. The one spot the Trickster Cleric definitely suffered was in damage. Getting Spirit Guardians out, doing either necrotic or radiant damage, with the Colossus being resistance to that, it just wasn't adding up. Not only that, it had advantage on its saves for all of those spells and magical effects, basically double halving that damage, causing it to be almost negligible. The Colossus focused on things that it could hit for most of the encounter, and that usually meant the Moon Druid. And with the Moon Druid being as tanky as it was, that means it took a lot of involuntary movement. The Moon Druid basically started around here, went through a couple walls over here, another wall over here, another wall over here, before ending up somewhere in the middle. Not only that, is stray attacks knocked the Thief Rogue, the Trickster Cleric, as well as the Barbarian all prone at different periods. This was an incredibly fun encounter. There were multiple periods during this that the party was just absolutely in stitches because they would get up and then immediately a legendary action would end at the end of their turn, knocking them back prone. Because with a +18 to hit, it is very difficult to dodge attacks coming from the Colossus. This is a CR25 monster. With a +18 to hit, it is going to hit the majority of its attacks. I believe it missed maybe twice during the whole encounter. In the end, the players did best the Colossus and the 2 stone golems. The stone golems fell in the first couple rounds of combat, and the Colossus made it to the beginning of the 5th round of combat before succumbing to its injuries. With 553 hit points, it definitely was not a pushover in this encounter whatsoever. If it was not for the Moon Druid being able to re-up its temporary hit points and the Cleric being able to kind of top everybody off 3 rounds into combat, it might have been a different story. In addition to that, if I would have gotten the Radiant Beam back at any of the turns other than the first turn, where I did only end up using it against one player, this definitely could have ended up differently. So, do I think this was a balanced encounter? Do I think this was a hard encounter as laid out in the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide? I believe it was. This is one of the first times that I have honestly straight up believed what the Dungeon Master's Guide had laid out for this encounter. Is this a hard encounter? Yes. Could people die during this encounter? Yes. If Radiant Beam regenerates a couple of times and someone gets turned into dust, they can die. If there's a couple of combats before this, the players can die. This is a hard encounter, especially when you consider that you're supposed to be doing approximately 3 encounters in an adventuring day. If the players met this as their third encounter, the last encounter of the day, this would be a struggle. 100%, especially with 4 level 20 players. And this was a blast to run. Compared to the Undead encounter that I had done before, this one was easier and funner. I did a lot less as a DM, and the players had a lot more agency to be able to attack and go after this and have the spotlight on them versus having 15 to 17 different legendary actions that I needed to manage in a given turn. I only had would I run this again? 100%. Guaranteed, if I had level 20 players at my table, I would throw a Colossus and a couple of stone golems against them any day of the week. If you have a party that is level 20 and you are looking for a fun little filler encounter, this is one you should run because it is just a blast. Moving your players around the map 20 feet at a time with 3 attacks is just fun. Knocking them prone, just fun. So there you have it. The Colossus and 2 stone golems. One of the funnest encounters that I have run at level 20 to date. This is considered a hard encounter by the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide, and I believe that it is appropriate for the distinction that the guide gives us. I would run this encounter time and time again for my players because it is fun to run as a DM and the players had a blast up against it. I want to thank you all for joining me today. We're almost to 500 subscribers here on YouTube, which will be an excellent milestone to hit. I appreciate everyone who has joined me in this journey so far, all the lovers of TTRPGs. I got more great Dungeons & Dragons content as well as more great Daggerheart content coming out. I've recently received my Daggerheart book and have been reading through it and really waiting till I have a fully formed opinion and possibly some table experience before I bring it to you guys, the viewers. I appreciate every one of you. We'll see you next time.